It's the time of year where I take a break from the usual stuff I do to talk about DC movies. Besides being a fan of DC in general, I find them really fun to talk about because there's so much flexibility in the way each project can adapt these characters, especially in the direct-to-video animated movies. The freedom of appealing to a smaller audience of dedicated fans means that they can get really out there and interesting. I say all this because none of that applies this year. I think 2024 is the biggest low point for DC in recent memory, which is saying something considering how last year went. The other aspect of DC I like to talk about is the business side of things. It feels like there's always something going on behind the scenes getting in the way of making good movies. Last year and this year were very much rebuilding years for DC. They pretty much just dumped out all the stuff they've been working on to get it out of the way so they could come in fresh in 2025 with James Gunn making all the decisions. So let's talk about the last gasp of the old guard and do a little roundup review of every DC Comics movie that came out in 2024. This won't take long, because technically speaking there were 6 movies, but really it's 3. The only DC movie that came out in theaters this year was Joker Folie. And yeah, everyone already ripped this movie to shreds. It's a pointless sequel that can't justify its existence, it's slow and not much happens, the musical numbers were bad and pointless, they wasted Lady Gaga. Pretty much everything other people said, I agree with. I also heard a lot of complaints that said it was betraying the legacy of the first movie and insulting its audience or whatever. I think that's taking it a little too personally. The people who made this thing weren't trying to hurt anyone. They were just trying to make a good piece of art, and it failed. Looking at my feelings, when I get down to it, I thought this movie was boring. It's that simple. I was bored watching it. That's all that really matters. That was the only live action movie this year. The rest are direct-to-video animated. So before I get into these next few, let's recap what was going on with the animated movie universes. In the 2010s, DC had a bunch of movies set in the same universe, based on the New 52 comics, called the DCAMU. Then that universe got reset, and they started a new universe called DC Rebirth. I was really down on this one in my previous videos. Most of them were bad, and they hardly ever crossed over, so why bother putting them together? But there was some multiverse stuff getting set up along the way, with DCAMU John Constantine crossing over in House of Mystery. This universe ended this year with a 3-part Crisis on Infinite Earths movie. When I heard about these, I was confused. This is a big event, right? What's it for? Is it supposed to be a finale, a capstone to the Rebirth universe like Endgame? But this universe barely got started. I don't know these versions of the characters. I don't care about them. Oh, it's probably going to be a big multiversal crossover with the DCAMU and beyond. But it doesn't look like that either. So then, I guess it's just a straightforward standalone adaptation of the Crisis comic? But again, didn't that story count on you knowing the stories of these universes beforehand? It turned out to be a little bit of all of those, but it didn't do any of them well. You can watch it as a standalone, I guess, and it does have Rebirth characters, but they're surrounded by dozens of other multiverse variants we've never seen before and have no attachment to. Not that I'm attached to the Rebirth ones either. I barely know them. On average, I saw them in one movie each 4 years ago. And yes, John Constantine is a major character, and his story across universes gets closure. But besides that and a few cameos, there's like no multiversal crossover. So I didn't really get the point of this movie. But none of that would have mattered if the movie was fun to watch. But it wasn't. Maybe hardcore comic fans would get this movie better than I did, but to me, this movie was incomprehensible. It was 3+ hours of people going, we have to stop the multiverse from being destroyed, and then going and building a thing or punching a thing, but that doesn't fix it, so they have to go build or punch another thing. I spent the whole time going, why are they doing that? How does this help? How do they figure that out? Which one of the 200 characters is this? It never felt like there was any stakes, so I was totally checked out. The last thing to come out this year was a 2-part adaptation of Watchmen. It was good, but there's not much to say about it. It's a super direct, faithful adaptation of the comic. If you like the comic, and the Snyder movie didn't do it for you, you'll like this. But there's nothing new here. Like I said, this was a wrap-up year, to finish out all the old stuff before James Gunn was ready with the restructuring. I think that's why the Crisis movies turned out so bad. Narratively, now is not the right time to do one of these. But from a business side of things, they needed to use it as a reset. That's what it was in the comics. In both the comics and here, it wiped the slate clean and started fresh, tying together all the wild different stuff that was going on. Going forward, everything is supposed to be way more organized, with live action and animated stuff all having clear connections. And if this is what it took to get there, I'm happy for it. James Gunn is great, and I have total confidence in him to pull this off. I saw Creature Commandos the other day, and it was great, like everything else he makes. I'm so beyond excited for Superman this summer. That's the only big release in 2025. So to finish up, 6 DC movies came out in 2024, putting the total number of movies based on DC Comics at 158. Fingers crossed for a better future.
Do it.